Your home for our Atlanta Falcons, Hawks, and Atlanta United. Your teams play here. Sports Radio 92.9, The Game.
We are Dukes and Bell. We start off every day and every hour by saying, hey, man. Go get some Hey Man L, the original 5% alcohol blonde OG, or the watermelon lime. Guys, if you've not tried it, and even if you have, it's time to get some more. And post it. We'll repost that on our Insta and also across all social media platforms. Hey, we're going to get into the Falcons. We're going to hear from offensive line coach Dwayne Ledford. The reason, Mike, is because we're curious about some of the things that have happened these last few weeks. And he happened to go on the morning shift, Coach Dwayne Ledford, and talk about his relationship with Arthur Smith, but also what about these botched snaps that has been happening that, you know, we're putting ourselves in trouble. And, Mike, we take it for granted, but you got to – that's stuff you have to work on. You've got to go and work on those snaps.
And that's why whenever the center gets knocked out of a game, you see whoever the quarterback is on the sideline, and they're literally practicing the snap. It sounds like rudimentary, but there is, call it an art form to it. Dahlman's snaps were a bit thin for us. You're not getting the ball. It's not supposed to hit him in the nuts. It's supposed to be just north of the other part. It's got to get to the quarterback. And that was the one thing when we looked at it like 15 times, I would say that, yeah, Desmond's got to secure the rock, but the snap was not good. That's basic stuff.
So we're going to get into that. Before we do, I want to remind you guys that you can join us on the golf course and play with your favorite 92.9 The Game personalities as we host the first annual Brown Glass Charity Golf Classic. It's presented by the Georgia Hemp Company. It's going to be Monday, November 20th, guys. So if you mark it down on your calendars at Eagle Watch Golf Club in Woodstock, it's a chance for you to kick off the Thanksgiving holiday week with a day of golf benefiting a great cause, Pets for Vets. And there are still playing spots available. So go to 929thegame.com, hit the events page to sign up. Now, I will tell you, I don't know how much longer that's going to be as far as spots available, but there are now, and we want to see you guys out there. So November 20th, it's a Monday, and just reminding you, we'll be talking more and more about this as Mike and I will be out there. All your favorite shows and personalities will be out there as well, and we're going to have a great time. Mike, we'll talk more about Trae Young. I had a guy hit me up, says that I shouldn't be complimenting Trae on the way he handled the loss last night because he wanted to see Trae play better. We'll get into that, and Jalen Johnson is going to join us, guys, so stay tuned. We had to push him back a little bit, but Jalen had a really good game last night.
Trae, we talking about leadership and, saying the right things and, again, put it into motion. It was just such an off night. I mean, both he and DeJounte couldn't hit anything. And then by the time Trae did hit the three, unfortunately, they had blown an 11-point lead to a Charlotte team. Let's be honest. They should be looking up at us by about 7 or 8 wins this year.
I agree. For some reason, they have our number, and I don't know why they play so well against us. All right, let's talk about the Falcons. First and foremost, this is what you need to know. Their head coach, Mike Vrabel, and I'm going to let you hear this, okay, coming up, talks about Malik Willis and Will Levis both playing. We told you guys yesterday on the show, late in the show, that Will Levis is probably going to get a majority of the snaps. How many? I don't know. I don't know how they're going to divvy this up. But, Mike, what we're telling you is either way, we're facing a guy that hadn't played a lot in Willis and a guy that hadn't played at all in Will Levis. So the advantage there, you've got to feel good about it. But I'm not going to jump the gun here and say, well, we're going to go up there and win by 20 because we can't get out of our own way sometimes. But I do feel good about the fact that the way our defense is playing and knowing that they had to make a decision because Ryan Tannehill's not available, it's got to give us a little bit of a bump. It's got to give us a little bit of an edge.
Right. Now, I know that when you feel that a young quarterback, and the Tennessee in the article from the Nashville paper saying, look, this dude had 23 interceptions his 2 years in Kentucky as a starter.
Levis.
Yeah, and Malik is a guy, look, as we said, he can throw it 75 yards, 80 yards in the air, but they have no idea where it's going. So, I mean, if you could get some heat on these guys, you're going to see some mistakes. Now, the question, they flipped the script and said, well, same thing goes for Ritter. Can Ritter have a clean game against the Titans? One other thing, and you and I were talking about this off the air, I mean, we know it's going to be physical. We talked with Arthur Smith how physical this is going to be. But they are not that good, at least the last 2 games. They got a big trend, Carl, of giving up a ton of rushing yards to the Titans. Matter of fact, the numbers are kind of eye-popping. Titans' run defense gave up 332 rushing yards in their past 2 games. And they were averaging about 55 to 60 yards per game before that, the first 4 games. So all of a sudden now they're giving up big gashing runs and everything else. So if we can get Algier and then Bijan doing his thing and CP, man, that'll take a lot of pressure off of Ritter.
They're not playing well, Mike. They have quarterback issues. Their wide receiving core, they signed DeAndre Hopkins, but he's done nothing since getting there. Okay, Derrick Henry has a lot of tread on those tires. The offensive line is not as good as it once was. I'm just telling you guys.
Right. You just lost your best safety, which sometimes demoralizes teams because now people are saying, well, who's next? Is it Derrick Henry?
I think this sets up perfectly for you to go up there and do what you want to do as far as running the football, and more importantly, setting up, which we've talked about this all season, the play action. Because if you are able to run the football as other teams have been, and these other teams I don't think they're as dynamic as us running the football these last 2 weeks against the Titans. So I feel really good right now. And, Mike, you said this. You know, Vegas saw what they were doing with the quarterback situation. This was a 1-point game. This is basically a pick 'em 3 days ago. Now, all of a sudden, we're a 3-point favorite.
Right. Over-under still at 38, so they're expecting a lot of defensive stops. It's a low-scoring game. And you and I were just talking about this off there with Levis. I mean, you know, yes, the old Falcons defense we'd see bum quarterbacks and rookies have big games, and, you know, Taysom Hill would sweep us over a course of a season. That was the end of the Dan Quinn era. I got to tell you guys, when you spend, you know, over $100-some-odd million on your defense, it shows. We went from one of the worst defenses to top 5, top 10. Jesse Bates may have 2 picks in this game on Sunday. Right?
Definitely. Let's hear from our offensive line coach, Dwayne Ledford. He joined the morning shift, guys. You can hear the full interview. A couple of things. One, Mike, our head coach is a former offensive lineman. What's his relationship with Arthur Smith? Here's what he said.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. When I was kind of finishing up my playing days, like I was always kind of bouncing around. I was in between teams, New Orleans and Cleveland. I knew I wanted to kind of get into coaching. And my strength coach, Jeff Connors, had a profound impact on me as a human. The way he pushed me but that's a complete other story. But I knew I wanted to get into coaching, so I was like, "Hey, Coach Connors, man, I still need to work out. Can I come?" And Coach Connor's like, "Yeah, come up." He was at Chapel Hill at the time, and he's like, "Yeah, come up here to UNC, and you know, I'll have you help out. You can be one of my assistants, and you know, you just be around." So I did that, and so obviously I gravitated towards the offensive line and would always hang out with those guys, be over there with them at practice, in the weight room. But that's when I first ran into Coach Smith. Was during my time there.
Talking about Arthur Smith and how they met, and then obviously, you know, their paths cross again.
Right.
Dwayne Ledford is the guy that's in charge of making sure that this offensive line is cohesive, guys, making sure they're making their blocks and making sure everybody's on the same page. What about these botched snaps that we've seen? What's going on there, Coach Ledford?
It's kind of the same thing, and you'll hear Coach talk about it a lot. It's the attention to details, because in those pressure moments, that's when, you know, just the slightest little, like where you just kind of flinch just a little bit and not as focused as you should be. You know, hey, I'm worried about this nose that's right here in my I feel him breathing on me, you know, and so you might be just a tad bit short, or you might get that grip on that ball could feel a little bit different. I remember a couple of games as a player, I would go and grab a hold of the ball because I knew what play was coming up. I was like, man, this ball feels like it's 2 times bigger than what it normally is.
That is Coach Dwayne Ledford, the offensive line coach. Now, if you listened yesterday to us, we had on Chris Lindstrom on the show, and he was great. And Chris was talking, we were asking about the holding calls and you know, him getting called early in the season with some of this stuff. And he was talking about a similar thing that Coach Ledford was talking about, Mike, being a tick off. If you're just a step off, a half a step, you get caught. And these guys are too big and too strong, Mike, for you to just be leveraging your way and pulling them, you know, and grabbing them and doing what you want to do. So that is part of this whole botch snap. I'm thinking ahead. I got to get the snap to the quarterback. Oh, and I got to get out of here and block this guy.
Because Vita Vea is right in front of you, and he was Vita Vea. Again, usually right over the center or just on the angle.
I think, listen, they'll get that cleaned up. 2 things. Ritter, all week long, Mike talked about it earlier, ball security at practice today. They started practice this way yesterday. And actually, I think, guys, they do this every day, but there's been more of an emphasis. Right. You see guys running through the dummies and guys punching at the ball, Mike, because they want to make sure that, hey, we got to hold on to the rock.
Maybe they've got to try that patented Jameis Winston backyard in Tampa drill.
You remember that?
Where Jameis is doing the happy feet. He's literally going forwards and backwards, and guys are swinging at him, and they're hitting him with, like, gym pads and boxing gloves. They had boxing gloves, like, on broomsticks. They were whacking guys today at Falcons practice.
Oh, so funny.
Hopefully we'll have ball discipline.
With that said, though, they can clean that up. Ritter will make that. He won't make that mistake again with the ball and being in the wrong hand and all that stuff. I just think that's instinctual. It'll happen. this botch snap where we're in the red zone, they can clean that up. That's just, again, working together and making sure they're on the same page. So those are 2 turnovers. The third one was, and this is going, we're trying to fast forward to see, hey, what is this Titan defense going to try to do against us? The third one was the strip sack right before the half, right? Well, that's just the awareness and blocking. And I said this. I would have wished Coach would have kicked a field goal right there and just taken the points. But that's neither here nor there now. So those are 3 things that if you look at this last week and you say going into this Titans game, if we don't do those things, Mike, we can put up 28 points on this team.
Seriously. I mean, look, you could argue that the way the season has gone, we're all upset about the Commanders because that felt like a game we should have won. Well, you could argue that the Bucs probably should have beat us with 3 turnovers right inside the 10-yard line.
Correct.
And to your point, so now how do you get things going? And now do we get off the roller coaster and then now we're rolling? Because, look, the Vikings is going to be a tough game. I don't care what anybody says. That is a tough game. And regardless of Jefferson being out, those guys, you saw what they did to the 49ers. They can do the same to us. But this is one you got to win. I thought when we all looked at the schedule when it came out back in May, right? This is one we had to win. We screwed up against the Commanders. Let's get more confidence from Ritter. By the way, Ritter, you go no fumbles, no picks. I'm dropping the dime, Carl. I'm getting the 9.
Oh
yeah,
come on!
It's on Twitter. Yes, I want you know what you do. You stirred it up. You stoked up the natives. They were restless, coming after me with pitchforks and torches like Frankenstein. You're like, you don't want him to succeed. I'm like, yes, I do.
All I did was tell the truth. That's it. That's all I did.
Bunch of bull. So anyway, I want this guy to win. I don't like if you go to Heineke. My only point about him was if you're like the London game. All right, look, Desmond, this ain't your day. Let's let Heineke try to make this thing respectable. Maybe you can pick some things up on the sideline. That doesn't mean that's the cure. That's the fix. I'm just saying, when you look as bad as he did in the London game, let's call it quits and get the backup in there. But that's not the long term because once you go to Heineken, your season's pretty much kaput if he can't do the job. Ritter, you're going to ride and die with him, and if he works, then you're set and we roll into next year, maybe with some playoff experience, and we're rolling.
Yeah, yesterday when Coach was on with us, the full interview's online at Odyssey.com. When we asked him about that, the whole maybe making the change thing, and he's just, I think he's, and I don't want to say hell-bent, Mike, I think he's just convinced this is how they have to do it.
Right.
If he's going to get better.
And as we said, you can't cry. I mean, I can cry over spilt milk. You shouldn't. But, I mean, yes, he should have had about 8 or 9 games under his belt last year to get some of these things he's learned experiences through his system. We're living with it now. The good news now is we got a great team. We got a good defense.